What is up, guys? Rick Cactus here with a new mic. Let me know how it sounds in the comments. But today we have a very exciting Destiny 2 video, and that's because we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of secret faction weapons. Now yes, the first ever faction rally for Destiny 2 is currently ongoing. However, it's only giving us a small sample of the overall faction weapons for Dead Orbit, New Monarchy, and of course, Future War Cult. Now, the other faction weapons are in the game's database. That's how we know about them, and that's how we're going to be showcasing what these weapons look like, as well as their perks. However, they're going to be implemented in future faction rallies. There's no way to access them in-game right now, so you're basically getting a preview of some of the sweet weapons hitting Destiny in the near future. And so, let's get started by looking at some of these secret faction weapons for a certain faction. Let's say Dead Orbit. So starting us off with the Dead Orbit weapons, the first one we have is the Contingency Plan Legendary Dead Orbit Scout Rifle. Now this is very interesting. Some of you may be going, wait a minute, Dead Orbit already has a scout rifle. In fact, the Dead Orbit scout rifle is currently the prize for Dead Orbit winning the first faction rally. And you'd be correct. Apparently, there's actually going to be multiple faction weapons for the different gun types throughout Destiny. Multiple auto rifles, multiple scout rifles, etc. And that is really exciting that Bungie didn't just say, one weapon per category and that's it. We actually have, again, multiple scout rifles for Dead Orbit. In any event, let's take a look at this specific scout. Firstly, it's got the intrinsic perk Viced Rapid Fire. Full auto, deeper ammo reserves, slightly faster reload when magazine is empty. These type of scout rifles are really interesting. There was one, the Black Scorpion, in the beta, and I actually quite enjoyed it. Next up, we have a choice of 3 ballistics, small bore, extended barrel, and corkscrew rifling. The next 2 perks are firstly Appended Mag. This weapon's magazine is built for higher capacity, so you have an increase to magazine size, and then Accurized Rounds. This weapon can fire longer distances, increases range. Lastly, we have auto-loading holster. The holstered weapon is automatically reloaded after a short period of time. Now moving on from there, we have yet another Dead Orbit sidearm, the Controlling Vision. The intrinsic perk here is Adaptive Frame, a well-rounded grip, reliable, and sturdy. The 3 sights you can get are Short Spec SAS, we then have Control SAS, and Tactical SAS. The next 2 perks are firstly Ricochet Rounds. Rounds ricochet off hard surfaces, increases stability, slightly increases range. Next up we have Alloy Magazine. Faster reloads when the magazine is empty. And lastly, Rampage. Kills with this weapon temporarily grant increased damage, stacks up to 3 times. Rampage is a great perk, so we'll have to see how this gun functions in game. Next up, we have a really interesting weapon, the Guided Star Legendary Dead Orbit Auto Rifle. Now I say it's interesting because it has a 720 rounds per minute rate of fire. That is extremely rare. There's only 2 legendary Viced auto rifles that share that rate of fire, but of course this isn't Viced, so this is going to be a very different auto rifle than most others. Now, its intrinsic perk represents this. It has rapid fire frame, deeper ammo reserves, slightly faster reload when magazine is empty. Next up, we have the choice of 2 different sights, the IS-2 Classic or the Model 8 Red. After that, we have high caliber rounds. Shots from this weapon knock the target back farther, slightly increase range. I'm now on board with the Guided Star. After that, Appended Mag. This weapon's magazine has increased capacity. After that, the perk Moving Target increases movement speed and target acquisition when moving while aiming down sights. Now moving on from there, the last Dead Orbit weapon we have is the Truth Teller Legendary Dead Orbit Grenade Launcher. Its intrinsic ability is Lightweight Frame, one-shot handheld grenade launcher with remote detonation. hold to fire, release to detonate. After that, we have 3 different launches. We have confined launch, we then have linear compensator, and hard launch. After that, the 2 perks are, firstly, concussion grenades. Grenades fired from this weapon emit a blast that staggers enemies. After that, we have black powder. This weapon's explosives are more effective, slightly increases blast radius, decreases stability. And lastly, we have quick draw. This weapon can be drawn unbelievably fast. Grenade launchers really aren't in a super amazing spot right now in Destiny 2, so we're really gonna just have to see where this thing functions and if it is actually usable. But moving on from there, we have a whole nother faction to cover, and it is New Monarchy. Let's start off with the coolest thing. The New Monarchy sword, the Honor's Edge. That's right, New Monarchy has a faction sword. This weapon's perks are as follows. Firstly, the intrinsic perk, Adaptive Frame. Well-rounded and reliable, used to launch an uppercut attack. So that's going to be the special attack with this weapon, the uppercut. After that, we have 2 perks, Tempered Edge, increased sword damage and ammo, or Jagged Edge, increased damage at the cost of sword ammo. Moving on from there, we have the choice between, firstly, Burst Guard. Sword Guard has low efficiency and high defense, or Enduring Guard. Sword Guard has high efficiency and low defense. The last perk is really interesting. It's a perk that no other swords I've seen has had, and that is On Guard. Quick attacks immediately after swapping to this sword do additional damage. That's a really cool perk. So you're using your other weapons, your hand cannon, and the enemy's getting really close. You switch to your sword, start those initial attacks, and those first few are going to do more damage than normal. Depending on how much damage those first few do, this thing could be extremely effective. Moving on from there, we have the New Monarchy hand cannon, the Older Sister 3. The intrinsic perk is Adaptive Frame, a well-rounded grip, reliable and sturdy. The 3 different sights are Hitmark, HCS, then we've got Steady Hand, and lastly, Crossfire. The 2 perks after that are, firstly, Alloy Magazine, faster reloads when the magazine is empty, and then Armor Piercing Rounds. Rounds cause additional damage to combatants' shields and over-penetrate targets. Slightly increases range. And lastly, we have something very interesting, the raid perk actually, Ambitious Assassin. Overflows the magazine based on the number of rapid kills before reloading. Overall, this seems like a pretty average hand cannon in all honesty, but we're gonna have to see how this thing is. It's really interesting that the raid perk Ambitious Assassin is showing up here. Next up, we have another New Monarchy scout rifle, the Good Counsel 9. Firstly, it has the intrinsic perk High Impact Frame, just like the current one. Slow firing and high damage. This weapon is more accurate when stationary and aiming down sights. The 2 different choices for optics are firstly SD Thermal and then LC Ranged. After that, we have 2 different perks, the first one being Armor Piercing Rounds. Rounds cause additional damage to combatant shields and over-penetrate targets, slightly increases range, or Tactical Mag. This weapon has multiple tactical improvements, increases stability, increases reload speed, and increases magazine size, all slightly. And lastly, it has Hip Fire Grip, ergonomic grips that increase accuracy and stability when firing from the hip. Not sure how good that's going to be on a high impact frame scout rifle. My guess is not that good. Moving on from there, however, we have the New Monarchy sniper rifle, the Maxim 11. Firstly, we have Adaptive Frame as the intrinsic perk, well-rounded grip, reliable, and sturdy. The 3 different sights are firstly the SSO-05 sniper, the SSO-07 sniper, and the SSO-08 sniper. The important part is that the 08 is short zoom. After that, Flared Magwell is optimized for fast reloading, slightly increases stability, greatly increases reload speed, or you could choose Alloy Magazine, faster reloads when the magazine is empty. The last perk is Snapshot Sights, faster time to aim down sights, a really good perk on snipers. So you have a low zoom optic, you have flared magwell, which you're going to reload a lot faster, and you have snapshot. This thing could actually be pretty decent, I'm thinking, for PvP. But that is going to wrap up New Monarchy, and it's time to move on to the last faction, Future War Cult. Starting us off here, we have the Future War Cult Grenade Launcher, the Memory Interdict. 5 rounds in a magazine, and the intrinsic perk is Adaptive Frame. Next up, we have 3 different launches: Confined Launch, then Countermass, and lastly, Hard Launch. The next 2 perks are, firstly, Remote Detonation. Fires a slower grenade projectile that bounces and detonates on trigger release. Increased blast radius decreases magazine size. The next perk is Implosion Rounds. This weapon's projectiles travel faster and have a controlled explosion, increases projectile speed, greatly increases stability, decreases blast radius. And lastly, we have Rampage. Kills with this weapon temporarily grant increased damage, stacks up to 3 times. Hold on. A grenade launcher with 5 rounds in a magazine with Rampage. A grenade launcher with Rampage. This is going to potentially actually be really decent in PvP. Like, you just kill one guy and then the next, 4 or 5 guys you're killing with those grenades, that's all going to be doing so much more damage than usual. That is really, really interesting. I can't wait to get my hands on this thing. Next up, we have the Enigma's Draw, legendary Future War Cult Sidearm. This weapon's perks are, firstly, as an intrinsic perk, Precision Frame. This weapon's recoil pattern is more predictably vertical. The 3 sights are, firstly, Control SAS, Tactic SAS, and Target SAS. The next 2 perks are a choice between, firstly, Accurized Rounds. This weapon can fire longer distances, increases range, or High Caliber Rounds. Shots fired from this weapon knock back the target farther, slightly increases range. The last perk is Zen Moment. Causing damage with this weapon increases its stability. There's actually quite a few good perks on this weapon. The Enigma's Draw could be actually quite decent. And next up, we have the Timeline's Vertex. Yes, Vertex with an E, not an O. I'm pronouncing it correctly. This is the legendary Future War Cult Fusion Rifle. Firstly, the intrinsic perk, Adaptive Frame. Next up, we have a choice between, firstly, Spark PS or Torch HS3. The next choice is between, firstly, Enhanced Battery. Strong battery life increases magazine size. Or Accelerated Coils. Speeds up charge. Faster charge time decreases impact damage. And the last perk is Snapshot Sights. Faster time to aim down sights. I really don't know what to think of this weapon. The actual stats aren't in the database quite yet, so it could be amazing, could be pretty average. And moving on from there, the last weapon we're going to take a look at today is the Stochastic Variable legendary Future War Cult Submachine Gun. So, first inspection, 900 rounds per minute, which is not great when you're talking about an SMG. You more often want 600. However, when we take a look at the perks here, the intrinsic perk, lightweight frame, superb handling, move faster with this weapon equipped, generally not the best intrinsic perk. We then have the Candle PS Sight or the Torch HS3, and then interestingly we have a choice between 3 different perks. The first one is High Caliber Rounds. Great perk, you cause more knockback on enemy targets. Or Accurized Rounds. This weapon can fire longer distances, increases range. Amazing perk with SMGs. Or Phase Magazine. Increases damage while lowering rate of fire. It lowers it down to the 600 rounds per minute archetype. Decreases magazine size. So this thing with Phase Magazine, and then lastly we have Tap the Trigger as well, grants a short period of increased stability and accuracy on initial trigger pull. This is a lot of very good perks happening on one SMG. Getting it down to 600 with Phase Magazine and then also getting Tap the Trigger, that is a good combination. So very excited to try this weapon out when it eventually does hit Destiny. And so guys, there you have it, a look at a bunch of new faction weapons hitting Destiny in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative. Now if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.